Have you ever had a cop lean into your window and say, "I'm just being honest with you," right before everything went wrong? That phrase is one of the most dangerous things you can hear during a traffic stop. The moment an officer says those words, you are already inside a trap designed to get you talking, admitting, and handing over your rights without even knowing it. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to show you could be the difference between driving home tonight or spending it in a holding cell. Cops are trained to use casual, friendly language to lower your guard. And I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos where those exact words led to arrests that never should have happened. Here's what you're about to learn in this video. First, the exact phrase cops use to trick you into thinking you're having a friendly conversation when you're actually being interrogated. Second, the specific words you need to say back that are 100% legal and shut the trap down completely. Third, how a simple traffic stop turns into a search, an arrest, and a criminal charge when you respond the wrong way. And fourth, a real walkthrough of a traffic stop showing you the wrong way and the right way side by side, so you can see exactly how this plays out in the real world. This is not theory. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings that every officer in this country is required to follow. And most people have no idea any of this exists until it's too late. Let's talk about why this moment is so dangerous. You get pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer walks up, checks your license and registration, and then something shifts. The tone gets casual. The officer leans in a little closer, and then you hear it. "Look, I'm just being honest with you. You seem like a good person. I just want to make sure everything's okay here." That feels like a friendly conversation, right? It is not. That is a rehearsed technique. Officers are trained in what law enforcement calls rapport building, and it is specifically designed to make you drop your guard so you start talking. Here's the reality. When you hear that phrase, the officer is not being your friend. The officer is working. Every word coming out of your mouth right now is being evaluated for evidence. Most drivers respond by saying something like, "I appreciate that. I've just been having a rough day." Or, "Honestly, I might have been going a little fast. I'm sorry." And just like that, you have handed over information that can be used to justify a deeper investigation, a search request, or even an arrest. The average driver has no legal training. You don't know what constitutes reasonable suspicion. You don't know what the officer can and cannot do at each stage of the stop. And cops count on that. Let me show you exactly how they use that knowledge gap against you and how you close it. Tactic 1 is called the neutral acknowledgement response, and it is the most important thing you will learn in this video. When a cop says, "I'm just being honest with you," or any variation of that friendly opener, your instinct is to match that energy. You want to seem cooperative. You want to seem like you have nothing to hide. And that instinct is exactly what gets you in trouble. Here's exactly what you say instead. You look at the officer calmly and you say this: "Thank you, officer. Am I being detained or am I free to go?" That's it. Those exact 11 words. Memorize them right now. Here's why this works. That question forces the officer to make a legal decision on the spot. Either you are being detained, which means they need reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime, or you're free to go, which means the stop is over. There is no third option. By asking that question, you have forced the encounter into legal territory where your rights exist and are protected. Bad way. The officer says, "I'm just being honest with you. You seem nervous." Most drivers say, "I'm not nervous. I just don't like being pulled over. I haven't done anything wrong." Then the officer says, "If you haven't done anything wrong, you don't mind if I take a quick look around, right?" And now you're in a search you never agreed to legally but verbally walked right into. Good way. The officer says, "I'm just being honest with you. You seem nervous." Smart drivers say, "Thank you, officer. Am I being detained or am I free to go?" The officer now has to answer a legal question. If there's no basis for detention, the stop ends. If there is, you now know you're being officially detained, and everything that follows has legal rules attached to it. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court. It is not confrontational. It is not disrespectful. It is a lawful question that every American citizen has the right to ask, and it immediately changes the dynamic of the entire stop. The legal backing here comes from Terry v. Ohio, decided by the Supreme Court in 1968. In plain English, the court said officers can only detain you if they can point to specific facts that suggest you committed or are about to commit a crime. A hunch doesn't count. You seeming nervous doesn't count. You having a messy car doesn't count. Specific articulable facts only. When you ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to go?" you are directly invoking the Terry standard, whether the officer knows that's what you're doing or not. Have you ever been asked something like, "You seem nervous. Is there anything in the car I should know about?" Drop a comment below right now. I want to know how many of you have been on the receiving end of this exact technique. Tactic 2 is called the consent brick wall, and it handles the moment cops move from friendly conversation to outright asking for permission to search your vehicle. This is where most drivers completely collapse. Here's the reality. Officers cannot search your car without one of three things: your consent, a warrant, or probable cause that a crime has been committed. They know getting a warrant takes time. They know probable cause requires real evidence. So the fastest and easiest path is your consent, and they are very good at getting it. Watch what happens when an officer uses the just being honest technique to lead into a consent request. The officer says, "Look, I'm just being honest. I can get a dog out here and we can be here for an hour, or you can just let me take a quick look and we can both get on with our day." That sounds like a reasonable trade-off. It is not. That is a pressure tactic, and it works on most people. Here's exactly what you say. You look at the officer and say this clearly and calmly. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." 5 words after officer. That is your complete answer. You do not explain why. You do not apologize for it. You do not say it's nothing personal. You say those words and you stop talking. Bad way. The officer asks for consent to search. Most drivers say, I have nothing to hide, so sure, go ahead." Then the officer finds something minor: a forgotten pipe, a friend's prescription bottle, loose change that was near a bag, and now a simple traffic stop has a possible charge attached to it. Good way. The officer asks for consent to search. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." The officer cannot legally search the vehicle on consent grounds. If they search anyway, that search can be challenged in court, and evidence found during it can be thrown out entirely. This is 100% legal. Former police officers have confirmed this works, and more importantly, they've confirmed they hear it rarely enough that when you say it, you immediately signal that you know your rights, which changes how the rest of that stop goes. The case backing this up is Schneckloth versus Bustamante from 1973. The Supreme Court ruled that consent to search must be voluntary. Here's what that means in plain English. If you say yes, they can search. If you say no, consent is off the table completely. The catch the court identified is that officers are not required to tell you that you have the right to say no. They will never volunteer that information. That is why you have to know it before you get pulled over. Tactic 3 is the silent shield, and it covers the most dangerous moment of any traffic stop. The moment an officer says, "I'm just being honest with you, just tell me what's in the car," and this goes a lot easier for both of us. This is an interrogation technique called minimization, and it is specifically designed to get you to self-incriminate. Listen closely because this is critical. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution gives you the right to remain silent during any police interaction, not just after arrest, before arrest, during a traffic stop. Right now, on the side of the road at 2 in the afternoon. You have the right to say nothing. Here's exactly what you say in this moment. "Officer, I'm exercising my right to remain silent." Say that sentence once, then stop talking. Do not fill the silence. Silence feels uncomfortable. The officer knows it feels uncomfortable. They will wait. They may repeat the question. They may say, "I'm just asking a simple question." Do not speak. The silence is working for you. Watch what happens when you use this correctly. The officer loses the primary tool they were using, which is getting you to hand them evidence verbally. Without your words, they have to rely on what they can actually observe. And if there's nothing to observe, the stop ends. Bad way. The officer says, "Just tell me what's in the car. Be honest with me." Most drivers say, "Nothing. Just my gym bag and some groceries. I've got some cash in the center console, but that's just my lunch money." Every single detail you just mentioned is now a lead. The officer is now curious about the cash. The investigation just expanded. Good way. The officer says, "Just tell me what's in the car. Be honest with me." Smart drivers say, "Officer, I'm exercising my right to remain silent." The officer has nothing to work with. The stop either continues with observable evidence or it ends. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection. The case is Berghuis versus Tompkins, decided in 2010. The Supreme Court said that to actually claim your Fifth Amendment right to silence, you have to clearly invoke it. Staying quiet alone is not enough. You have to say the words, "I'm exercising my right to remain silent." That is the invocation. Once you say it, police are legally required to stop questioning you. Most people watching this right now made it further than 90% of viewers who already clicked away. If you're still here, you are already more prepared than the average driver on the road. Do me a favor and drop a comment saying "still here" so I know who's getting the full picture. And hit that like button because this next part is where it all comes together. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing about a tactic called the badge of cooperation. This is tactic 4, and it's about managing the entire interaction without ever being rude, aggressive, or giving up a single right. Officers have enormous discretion. A broken taillight can be a verbal warning or a $200 ticket. How you handle the interaction influences which one you get. The mistake most people make is thinking that protecting your rights means being difficult or hostile. That is wrong. This is 100% legal and it works consistently. You can be completely respectful, completely cooperative on the legal requirements, completely firm on your rights. When the officer approaches, have your license, registration, and insurance ready. Hand them over without being asked. Then say this exactly. Officer, I will comply with all lawful orders. I don't answer questions without my attorney present, and I don't consent to searches. Say it politely. Say it like you're telling someone what you'd like for lunch. Then stop talking. What you have just done is remarkable. You have established that you are cooperative with the legal requirements. You have asserted your Fifth Amendment right to silence. You have asserted your Fourth Amendment right. And you have given the officer zero reason to escalate. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the stops that go smoothly involve someone calm and polite. The stops that spiral into searches and arrests almost always involve someone who got friendly, started talking, and said yes to something they didn't have to. Now let me show you exactly how all four of these tactics work together in a real scenario so you can see the difference clearly. Picture this. You're driving home at 10 at night. You get pulled over for a rolling stop. The officer walks up, takes your documents, runs them, and comes back. Then it starts. Look, I'm just going to be honest with you. Tonight's a big night for us. We're looking for some things in this area, and I just want to make sure everything's okay. You mind if I ask you a couple questions? The wrong way. You say, sure, no problem. The officer asks if you've been anywhere unusual tonight. You say a friend's house. The officer says, oh, interesting, mind if I take a quick look in the back? You say, I have nothing to hide. The officer searches. The officer finds a friend's prescription bottle. Now you're explaining a bottle with someone else's name on it at 10 at night. That is a nightmare. The right way. The officer asks if you mind answering a couple questions. You say calmly, Officer, I am exercising my right to remain silent, and I do not consent to any searches. The officer says, look, I'm just being honest. This is a lot easier if you cooperate. You say, am I being detained or am I free to go? The officer has to answer. If there is no reasonable suspicion, the stop ends. That is the difference between a story and a phone call from jail. In 3 days, I'm dropping the video on what to do when a cop says they smell marijuana. That is the most abused line in traffic stop history. Subscribe right now. Every tactic in this video is backed by Supreme Court rulings. Every phrase is 100% legal to say. Smash that like button and stay safe out there.